Well, hello everyone. This is David Ajibade, and welcome to tonight's webinar, which, by the way, shall be a very, very, very interesting one. So I'm really looking forward to this. And of course, she's an intriguing person. Lots of great information and unique information to share. So we're really looking forward to this. If you're new here, we are, like I said, building strength webinars, and our goal, I'll tell you that in a minute, but also it is to really help people understand health, to really give people as complete a picture of health as is possible. And that cannot be done if we only look at it from one dimension, which is, for the most part, for most people look at it from the physical perspective. But we want to add the spiritual and the mental as well. Don't get worried. Don't get worried there. It's not about woo-woo, but it's really about who we are as human beings and how we function and how we work. Now, just in case you're new here and you don't know how this thing works, you can always send in a chat, which is right below my video. You can send in a chat and just mention what your problem or comment is, and I'll try and take care of it. We shall be handing over to Shoshana in about a few minutes, but in the meantime, we got to do some housekeeping, as they say. That's Sherry Pletz, my partner in this. Well, she's the other half of the dynamic duo, and she's working with Shoshana behind the scenes. What happens is that I have to go on live first, and then Shoshana gets on as well. So she's getting her slides together and making sure that everything is all in tip-top shape. There's our goal, to bring you the absolute best and most useful information on health, strength, and human effectiveness. And the way we do that is really by starting with the basics, the fundamentals, how things work, how your body works, how your mind works. And I believe that is until we really have a firm grasp of that. And when I say firm grasp, I don't mean you need to know everything about everything, but really about the key things, the important things, what our body needs, the toxins that keep our bodies from working, and what are the things we need as we go through different stages of life. And I have to say this, that until we understand that, until we have a clear understanding of how things work, we really won't be able to deal effectively with conditions when they arise. And of course, Shoshana will be talking about a couple of learning difficulties. But this is the absolute bottom line. Understanding how our minds and bodies work, because it is upon that foundation that we can truly begin to understand, like I said, where to get the best nutrition, and I believe in nutritional supplementation. We all believe in nutritional supplementation over here, but also the complementary modalities, the allopathic modalities. All these things fit together. Some people call it integrative medicine, but I tend to shy away from the word integrative, because integrative medicine, integrative is okay, but the word medicine assumes that you're sick. Well, what we want to do with what we're doing is really, even if you don't feel sick, even if you don't have any problems, we believe that there is a lot more in you that you can develop, and I think we all have tremendous potential, and I believe that we have a duty and obligation to fulfill that potential in whichever way we can, and for the sake of our fellow man, Obviously, this is a disclaimer slide. We are not about treating disease. We're about, for the most part, improving health and wellness. And if I can get this thing moving, there you go, I can. And speaking about learning difficulties, you've got to realize that there are so many different things that happen, especially in children, that can make them act or not learn like they should. And if all you do is just throw drugs at them, well, you may not be getting to the root of the problem. And of course, we are not against medications whatsoever, but we believe that we should see the whole picture as well. And you can see there are several things that affect learning, from the physical environment to toxins to allergies, and of course, light. Never heard about this before. I mean, it just shows you how ignorant I am. That's why I love my job, because I get exposed to all kinds of interesting thoughts and philosophies and sciences. But light itself has been found to really play a huge part in learning. And the way I found out about this, and many of you who know Dr. Joseph Annibali, he did an excellent presentation on ADD a couple of months ago, and he's back to complete, or he's going to be back in about a week's time to talk about the treatment part of ADD. And you have to be on for that. That's next week, which would be the 31st of January at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. All right, well, one of his daughters, or his daughter actually had major issues. I think Shoshana is going to explain that to you some more, but she had major issues with, I think, with headaches and vision problems and all that. And guess who helped her out? Obviously, Shoshana. And Dr. Anibali was the one who introduced us. And I'm very, 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 very glad that he did that, because I think after speaking with Shoshana, there's a lot that she has to share that would be of use and of benefit to those of you joining us in this presentation. I'm going to hand over to Shoshana very soon. Well, as soon as Sherry tells me she's ready. Okay. Well, as soon as Sherry tells me she's ready, and I'll be looking at, she's ready. She says she's ready. Okay, great. I mentioned that Shoshana works. She works with the Amen Clinics, and like you know, Amen Clinics is sponsoring this program. She's an educational therapist. She's a special educator and a licensed Erlen diagnostician. She's going to talk to you about what that means. She has over 30 years of experience in educational consulting, addressing the needs of people with educational difficulties. She has spoken nationally and internationally. And I tell you again, what an amazing wealth of information that she has. So without much further ado, and by the way, we're going to announce a couple of great resources that Dr. Amen is offering. His best-selling series called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. Can you see it? He's given a discount on that. But we're here to talk about Shoshana and how visual stress affects learning and behavior. Again, Shoshana, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I'll be handing over to you right now.
Hello, everybody. My name is Shoshana, and I am very honored to be presenting to all of you. I want to thank Dr. David for inviting me, and Dr. Anibali from the Amen Clinic of DC for his support in bringing Erlen method to his patients, as well as in a medium like this where a wide range of people can learn about this amazing intervention. I'd like to give you a little background about how I got into the Erlen method. I had been working as an occupational therapist, both in private practice as well as in different public schools and private schools. And I also have a degree in assistive technology and special education. And I didn't need another method. I've been learning all my life, 30 years, learning all these innovative, wonderful modalities to help my clients, and many of them I actually use on myself and my family, so I have a lot of personal experience using them, including Erlen method. And I didn't really understand what Erlen was, and I had heard about it. I had heard about it in relation to using colored overlays, which are plastic sheets that you put on a printed page, and it helps decrease the glare of the page and enables some people to read a lot better because they don't have as much visual stress. I had never seen it demonstrated. I had just heard about it from other therapists, and one day I was caught in a snowstorm, and there are no accidents. I truly believe this. I could not get out of Chicago to come back to Baltimore, and my friend said, well, isn't that amazing, because my son has some learning problems, and my friend is a neuropsychiatrist, and she's coming over to test my son for something called Erlen method. Have you heard of it? And I said, I don't know anything about it except the very little that I just told you. She said, well, you should know about it because a lot of people are being helped, and you're an occupational therapist and you work with people with learning problems. So I'm going to ask her if you can sit in on the session. She approved. I sat in on the session and I was blown away. I saw this child read much smoother, much more efficiently, with less stress, and you could see the stress because he was holding his head when he was reading without the overlay. And then suddenly he was animated and feeling good about reading and reading fluidly. And that was only in an hour and a half. And I said, okay, this is very strange. This is not like anything I've ever seen. And how could one simple overlay seemed to increase his reading skills by about a grade and a half in 1 hour. And the woman said to me, if you're willing to spread the word about Erlen, I will give you resources to do that with. And by the time I got home to Baltimore, I had special delivery, a box of videos and books at my home. I read everything, I devoured the videos, I couldn't get enough of this, and I found a woman near my home who was doing trainings, and I trained it, and in the training, to my surprise, I was the only professional there who had not had any experience, personal experience with Erlen. Every professional who was there was either an Erlen client wearing these funny colored lenses, or they had had a child or a relative who had been tested for Erlen syndrome and had amazing results, and we were all in the same training together. Little did I know that when we had to test each other, and I was reading, when my partner put down the purple overlay, I felt better, more relaxed, and I could read longer without my eyes getting tired. But I didn't come knowing that I had any symptoms of Erlen syndrome. I was coming as a professional learning another modality to use with my students. From then on, I used the overlay when I would be in airports. I would be in places where I'd be reading where there were bright lights, and it really made the page feel better and look better. And I even use my overlay on my computer screen when the computer screen looks too bright. Okay, so let's step forward. About 3 years, I had trained in Erlen, and I barely used it because I didn't have time. I thought I didn't have time. The reason I didn't have time is because I didn't really know how to screen in an efficient way. I had taken a 2-day course, and then I came back thinking that, well, now I can do it, and I tried it a couple of times, and I felt very staccato, and I could not integrate it into my services. Fast forward another couple of years. I had been telling my eye doctor about this process, and he didn't know anything about it, and he came up to me when I was waiting in the waiting room and said, you know that Erlen method that you're talking about? I read a story about an Erlen client that would benefit it, and how would you like to provide those services in our clinic, in our eye clinic? And I will help pay for the cost of your training, and you can have an office in my office. Well, I couldn't pass up a great deal like that. So I went to California, trained with Helen Erlen, and in a week I learned more about the neuropsychology of the visual system and the visual perceptual system that I had learned in any of my sensory processing training as an occupational therapist. I came back and started seeing clients, and I can honestly say in the 2 years I've been doing this, I've seen about 60 to 70 clients, and about 95% of them have been helped either moderately or majorly with their visual stress. It includes people with migraines and headaches, people with traumatic brain injury who have had horrible visual perceptual issues, many clients who have been diagnosed with dyslexia and ADD and ADHD, and a host of other clients, which we'll go over the PowerPoint and I will show you. So let's start the PowerPoint, and I'm kind of new at this venue, so please forgive me if I'm not as fluid as I usually am at a presentation. Erlen method is a non-medical process. It's considered an educational testing procedure, and it comes under assistive technology in many special ed programs under 504 plans and IEPs, but we are dealing with a lot of medical issues. So the types of issues that we are looking at that may affect the visual system would be, is the person on medication? How long have they been on a medication, and how many changes have they had in that medication, and does that affect their visual system? Antibiotics can affect the visual system and make the person more light sensitive, so we want to know if they're on any kind of antibiotics. If they have allergies, if they have any kind of sensitivities to food, smell, and noise, or touch. And a lot of clients I see have sensory processing issues or sensory integration issues, as it's known in occupational therapy terms. So you're going to find a lot of sensitivities to touch and smell and noise, and as well as light. So we're looking primarily at light, but when you have visual stress, it affects other systems in the body. Also, sleeping patterns can affect how a person tolerates light. And then we're also looking at, and in our testing procedures, problems with spelling, because a lot of people will make a lot of mistakes when they're under stress. And some of the clients that I have, they will start out spelling pretty well and degrade in about 30 seconds to an hour, and they start making a lot more mistakes. And this includes with handwriting also, and it can be working on a keyboard. So anything where they have to fluidly pull information from their cognitive processes as well as motor skills. So we're looking at listening skills, because the visual system can affect the auditory system. We're looking at communication as well as motor coordination, and that's one that I didn't put up there, because the vestibular system is in the inner ear, and the visual system will affect the auditory as well as your vestibular system, which in turn can affect your whole coordination system. So just through the eyes, many, many systems can be stressed out. Helen Erlin is the creator of the Erlin method, which uses the colored overlays and spectral filters worn as glasses or contact lenses. And it was discovered many, many years ago when she's a reading specialist, and she was teaching a literacy program for adults, and found that putting theater film over the written page actually helped increase the reading skills of the adults she was working with. And different people chose different colors, and they tended to pick those colors consistently. So it started her thinking that maybe specific colors were better for specific people, and it helped decrease some sort of stress by reading white on black and decrease some of the glare. A lot of research has happened in the last 25 years, and if anybody's interested, they can go to my website at www.irlenvlcmd, and you can download abstracts from many of those research studies, including the Navy and from the medical as well as the educational systems. What is Erlin syndrome? There's a lot of speculation about what it's not, so I'm hoping that I can give you some information about what it might be and how it might be able to be detected in your clients and maybe in yourself if you're a consumer. It's a visual perceptual disorder. It tends to be come up in people who are under a lot of stress, and it probably is located in the visual cortex, and how the light that comes into the eyes is processed through the visual cortex of the brain. So it's not actually the structures of the eye, it's how the brain interacts with what messages the brain is getting from the visual system. There's something called the magnocellular deficit, and hopefully we'll talk about that later on, that may be causing a timing issue in the visual system, which causes these distortions that people will describe. And if you go to my website, you will be able to see the dynamic distortions, or some of them anyway, and we'll go through them through this slideshow. There is a genetic component, so we'll find in families, people will complain that their family members are light sensitive, or someone had ADD, or someone liked to read in the dark, and it can go back generations. The condition is varied and intermittent, so sometimes the person will function really well, and especially if there's low lighting, or if they're triggered by fluorescent lighting, then if they're not in fluorescent lighting, they'll function better. And it can be triggered by some of the medical issues that we described in the previous slide. It exists on a continuum from slight to severe. So some of my clients come in with very, very slight problems, but those slight problems can be a real bothersome issue. Such as one of my clients came in and she said, I gave myself an Erlen screening and diagnostic services as a birthday present, and I'm 50 years old and I can't stand to see my husband's striped shirts. They make me nauseous, and he loves striped shirts. And I can't stand going to the movies because I get very anxious because of the light on the movie screen. And when I watch TV, I watch, but it just doesn't feel good because of the flashing light. And I would like to see if these lenses could help me, because it's more quality of life. I can function, but it's really quality of life. I read just fine. And the lenses took care of those symptoms, and she was excited and happy, and I think it caused a lot of happiness between her relationship with her husband, because he could wear his striped shirts once again. Then you have the severe cases where people complain about what we would call hallucinations, but they could actually be Erlen distortions, such as letters jumping off the page. I have clients that actually read with their heads turned to the side or upside down because it stops the letters from moving. Swirling letters, faces that look like puzzles that aren't together. People who look out into the horizon and all they see is heat waves, and they look on a book and they see letters on heat waves. So it can be misdiagnosed as a psychiatric issue. So that's why it's very important to look at this as a potential reason why someone might be seeing visually in a way that's very distorted. It can be enhanced by environmental stressors such as bright lights. Fluorescent lighting seems to trigger it more than other lights. The flicker effect on the fluorescent lighting can be extremely stressful. High contrast, certain colors and patterns, the amount of print on a page. So if you have less print or the print is a larger typeset, it may decrease the distortions. And continuous performance. So Erlen clients tend to can read pretty well when their eyes are not as tired, or if they blink, it can actually stop the distortions, or if they read for a while and then they take a break and they come back to it. So continuous performance will make the symptoms worse, and it can even cause anxiety, where someone feels that they're like obsessive or anxious and they don't know why. Demand for comprehension, so if they're working harder, the stress comes up even more. The print size, the style, and the format. It's not identified, unfortunately, by standardized tests because it is such a subjective issue, and many of my clients come to me after years of being subjected to standardized tests and vision exams and being told that there's really not a clear reason why they're having these visual distortions. And it's not a method of instruction. It always makes me angry when I hear teachers tell me, or tutors, or math teachers say, well, we don't want another method of instruction. We don't want Erlen method. I guess maybe I should use a different term. It's not a method, it's an intervention. And whatever method you're using, which is working, you should use it, because this can only enhance the method that you're using by eliminating some of the visual stress and the distortions, and enable the person to work better and more efficiently, and let their visual system work more efficiently. These are some of the demographics of Erlen clients. There's over 7,000 educators trained in the Erlen method all over the world. There's centers like mine all over the world. Over 100,000 adults and children wear Erlen spectral filters. And it's very funny when I hear someone they'll take my course and they'll learn about Erlen, and then they'll go out in the community and see people with colored lenses that are very unusual colors. And many of my students will come and tell me that they've gone up to people and asked them if they had Erlen spectral filters, and they've said yes. So there's a lot of people wearing them that don't talk about it because they don't have obvious disabilities. Maybe they were the people who were working really hard for that A, or they were the people who got good grades because they had great memories, but their reading skills were terrible, and you could hear it when they read out loud. So they basically never raised their hand when they were in school. So anyway, millions of children use colored overlays. Almost every school in Texas knows about Erlen overlays and will provide them as part of the accommodation process. An overlay is a $5 intervention. And I just saw a 10-year-old girl with reading problems last Sunday, actually yesterday, and in the course of the session, in 20 minutes, we chose a combination of overlays, and her reading went up a whole grade level in 20 minutes. Her mother is a talented and gifted teacher, and her mother was just amazed. By the end of the testing, when we use the spectral filters, she was up another grade level. That was another 2 hours. So in a period of 2.5 hours, she went up 2 grade levels with just an intervention, no instruction. Erlen overlays are recognized as a standard low-tech AT for testing. So for SATs and ACTs, as well as other testing, you may have to get a written approval for the need for assistive technology, but it is recognized. It's also recognized by recordings for the blind. I've done assessments for Voc Rehab, and and then there's the testing. There's over 130 Erlen centers in 24 countries. If you go to the www.erlen.com website, it'll have a link where you can find a testing center, and you put in the country or the state that you're looking for a testing center, and you can find in almost every state and almost every continent, I don't know if every country, but in a lot of countries there are testing centers. Oh, excuse me, I am okay. So the main thing is identifying the population that can be helped. On my website, I have a 4-page self-test, which I require every prospective Erlen client to fill out and send to me, and I go over that self-test and the symptoms. And if I feel that their symptoms are not in alignment with the Erlen profile, I will tell them honestly, I don't think your issue is Erlen syndrome, and I will recommend other services. And I can actually provide some of those services. So Erlen isn't my entire business and the only intervention that I use. But I don't want people to come to me to try to figure it out. So I have a low-cost screening process that if they're borderline, we can see, and it only requires an hour and a half of their time, a minimal amount of funds, and a $5 intervention, which is the overlays. If they are helped by those overlays, then they can go on to the little bit more expensive process, which is the spectral filters, which is more time-consuming, as well as they would be wearing them as glasses or contacts. But by the time I'm actually seeing them, about 95% of the clients who actually are seen and paying money for this service benefit moderately to majorly. Then there's a 5% chance that someone who comes with light sensitivity may not feel that they're helped by the process, but it's pretty rare. 46% of those with specific learning disabilities and reading problems can be helped by Erlen method. 33% of individuals are misdiagnosed with ADD, dyslexia, or behavior problems and may benefit from the Erlen method, and it may actually take away most or all of their symptoms. I can't guarantee it, but I've seen it happen, and many of my clients have described their attention issues as majorly improved by relaxing their visual system. Dyslexia, if it's a visually based dyslexia, the likelihood is the Erlen method will help in some way, and it may actually increase their reading level to grade level or above with just using this intervention. 12 to 14% of the general population, gifted and good readers, can benefit from just decreasing the glare on the written page. That's what I am. I don't have Erlen syndrome, but I really enjoy not having that bright white page on when I'm reading. especially when I'm reading a magazine or a textbook, when it's very bright and very shiny and very glary. 55% of individuals with head injury, concussion, and whiplash, and individuals with autism and certain medical and visual conditions such as macular degeneration, Parkinson's, and certain types of dementia, where a person actually becomes light sensitive, and this can actually decrease that light sensitivity and the stress from that. Temple Grandin, who is a famous person with severe autism, actually speaks about Irlen in her talks to international audiences. She herself does not wear Irlen filters, but she has met many people who have benefited, who have autism, and does recommend it if the person is light sensitive and has visual perceptual issues. Okay, let's go to the next one. Then you have populations of people in schools, and I'm actually not going to go over the individual ones, but you're able to download this slideshow, but it's a whole array of gifted, average students, students with emotional problems and learning problems. So Irlen can affect the person pretty globally, and we also call it scotopic sensitivity syndrome, which means light sensitivity. And it can affect how they function in their lives, how they behave and act in certain terms of self-regulation and anxiety, and it can affect their learning pretty severely. And adults, it can affect how they work and their work productivity. And especially my clients who have severe migraines and headaches, who are helped by the Irlen spectral filters, describe it as life-saving. And these are some of the diagnoses of people that we treat, and I won't go over those in detail. We'll go on to the next one. These are some of the major symptoms, and these are the ones that I'm looking for first, and then there are other symptoms, many other symptoms afterward. The main one is light sensitivity. If the person prefers to read in lower lighting, they're bothered by glare, they know that fluorescent lighting makes them feel more anxious or makes them feel antsy, or they tend to not want to read in fluorescent lights or bright lights or even bright sunlight, that would be a trigger for me in terms of a symptom. Driving at night is difficult because of the glare and poor depth perception. They have discomfort when concentrating or working under bright lights or fluorescent lights. We could actually hear the issue when they read, okay, if they have a reading problem. So I actually have my clients read out loud. I can hear the inefficiency of their reading. Their numbers and letters tend to move around. I'll actually have clients reading, and then they're reading one line, and then they're all the way on the third line, and they don't even realize it. And you're trying to find out where are they reading, because their eyes are jumping all over the place. They tend to have tracking issues, and they see things shaking, blurry, moving, double vision, and it becomes difficult to perceive the written page, and they really struggle to try to read. And when they respond to the overlays, you will hear immediately a change in their inefficiency to a more efficient reader within a couple of minutes. They have a slow reading rate, so they're, what takes most people 20 minutes to read might take them hours. They may reread and reread things over and over again and not remember it because they're working so hard. They have a problem identifying words, and also skimming the page, and speed reading is almost near impossible. They may also have difficulty with numbers and seeing numbers accurately and seeing symbols accurately, as well as music notes. So when I hear a music teacher telling me that a particular student cannot read the musical notes and prefers to play by ear, that may be an indication that that person has visual stress when they look at the music page, and they may be able to be helped with just an overlay, that $5 intervention. Also, stress can cause attention deficit issues. It can be either hypo or hyper. And many of my clients are medicated and come to me after years of trying to address this issue. And a lot of it may be caused by this anxiety and restlessness because of the visual stress. And we'll be able to tell through the overlay use and also through the spectral filter use whether their nervous system calms down. They can actually feel it immediately when they're in the testing session. Strain or fatigue when they're reading or when they're functioning in these bright lights. Headaches will be a big trigger. And if people tell me that their headaches are triggered by light, that's a huge trigger. And it affects, their headaches affect listening, studying, working, reading, and it can actually affect everything in their lives in terms of their comfort in their body. And then poor depth perception. So many of my clients report that that they never knew that they weren't seeing in 3D. That once they got their lenses, they could see the world in dimensions that were so beautiful and so wonderful, and before they were seeing things fragmented or two-dimensionally. Many of my clients are clumsy, we call them klutzy, and many of them complain about when they drive that they're afraid that they're going to, when they weave in and out of cars or other cars weaving in and out, that they're going to have a crash, that they can't, they're very scared of judging distances, especially when there's bright lights. Okay, let's go to the next one. So these are some of the symptoms of visual stress. So there's dizziness, fatigue. We described some of the headaches, stomach aches, breathing, like shallow breathing, and then some of the academic difficulties we described. Oh, now the use of whiteboards can be a problem. So this is an issue that, when we have the blackboards or the green boards, it decreases some of that glare. Now with the whiteboards, we're increasing glare, and they're very shiny. Overhead projectors with the brightness of the light, and charts, textbooks are the worst because of the shiny, bright white pages. And Scantron sheets, which a lot of standardized testing is on, the Scantron sheets can actually start looking like the dots are shifting or they're doubling up, and many people can perceive the wrong dot, and they're not getting the wrong answer because they don't know the answer, but because they didn't place it on the Scantron sheets properly. It can affect sports performance, and as we talked about, driving. This is a Peanuts cartoon that describes a typical Erlang client. This is the kind of kid or adult I see. This is another one. So you might want to, if you see yourself in this when you're reading, then you might want to check out my 4-page self-test on my website. Okay, and we're not going to go over this. These are some of the skills that we can help. We can help the reading efficiency and comfort. Some of the other basic reading skills that would have to be addressed with a reading tutor, but if we eliminate the visual stress, then we can really see if those other skills are not really there or whether they've been impacted by visual stress and the brain just not working efficiently. And here we go. This is a distortion, and believe it or not, there are people who all their lives this is how they see, and they think that everybody else is seeing that way because they don't know any different. This is called shaky. And this is what they should see, and oftentimes with the Erlang spectral filters, it calms down that shakiness, and they can see just like the way that they're supposed to see. This is from National Geographic, and this is a computer simulated picture of how this young woman was seeing. You see how she saw like heat waves. And she saw this way all her life, so this is how she learned to function. She learned to drive, she learned to read, she learned to function in her daily living skills, but it was very stressful. And you can see in the lenses how it tightened up the lines. It calmed down her nervous system so that when she put on her filters, there were real lines. Letters looked like letters, and she didn't have to try to figure it out and try to work her brain so hard to try to decipher what she was seeing in the world. Now we're going to describe some of the distortions, and if you look on my website, you can see them in a dynamic pattern. What you're looking at is something very static, and it's a moment in time. Okay, so here's something you can either perceive one or the other, but if you stare at this long enough, that white will start pulling up. It's a very bright white against a very black, and if you look at that long enough, it might even start growing and start shaking and start sparkling. This is called washout. In washout, this can occur either right from the beginning of reading, it can occur 30 seconds into reading, or it could occur a couple of hours after reading. But it's where the letters actually look like they're kind of getting blurry and gray, and parts of the letters are washing out. When you blink your eyes, it can actually stop that distortion, and then the letters get sharp. But then as you read longer, the stress of reading can actually bring up that distortion again. This is called blurry. This is where your eyes, when you blink, it will be clear, and then as you read, it gets blurry, and then you might turn your head or stretch or do something to relieve the stress, and then the letters get sharp again, and then they start getting blurry again. And the eye doctor's telling you, we've corrected your vision. You have 20/20 vision, or we've corrected your vision with the right acuity prescription, so you should be able to see. We don't understand why you're seeing blurry. But you're still complaining that the words are blurry. This is called shaky, and this is where the letters will stand still, and then as you're reading, they start to move very slowly, kind of like that. And it can be very slight, and in some people, as they get more and more tired, it can actually be like this. And they're trying to hold those letters still. And that's when some people will turn their head, or actually there are some clients of mine who actually read upside down to stop the shakiness. Very often when people read in like an airplane or a car, this can occur, and it can cause nausea and dizziness. This is called halo. It's where the letters start looking like they have little teeny shadows in back of them or on the side of them. It actually can also look like double, that you're seeing double. And as the typeset gets smaller and the brightness gets brighter, it can actually make the letters blend into each other. And if you blink your eyes, sometimes it can stop the distortion. Or if you stretch or relieve some of the tension, lower the light. This is one of the more severe ones. This is where the focal vision, where the two eyes meet in the middle, it's clear. But then everything around it starts moving and swirling, and this can also cause nausea and dizziness. And by relaxing the eyes, you can actually increase the focal vision, which is what's in focus as the two eyes meet, and then it actually can eliminate some of that swirliness, and sometimes totally. This is a very severe case where the letters start actually shifting. They can start jumping off the page, lines start shifting, and this can actually be misdiagnosed as a hallucination. This is called Star Wars, where you might start out reading and everything looks perceptually fine, and then the letters start pulling out in the background and it kind of looks like a tunnel. And here's another one where the letters start floating off the page. Believe it or not, people actually learn how to read and they have this distortion. This is the major swirl of the letter and waves. And this is kind of like what you were seeing with the girl on National Geographic, where it sort of looks like things have a certain waviness, like a heat wave. Okay, here we see two different typesets. One is a larger typeset and one is a smaller one. You see how much duller the top one is and how much brighter the bottom one is. So when you're young and in first or second grade, or you're an older adult and reading large print, the distortions may not be as bothersome. But as you get to smaller typeset, it becomes more difficult to decipher and more difficult to read. Here's the difference between a less contrast and more contrast. Some people prefer more contrast, some less contrast. See where you fall in to the continuum. Some people prefer a colored typeset. It decreases some of the stress, and also certain visual systems respond to certain colors in different ways. And here we have a variety of colors, and some people might perceive that red as being very loud and sharp and pulling out, and some people might say, oh, that's very calming and that feels good against that black background. So each person's nervous system is different, and each person responds differently to different color and spectral bands. Here's another example. Okay. Identify and correct the Erlen before instruction and remediation is the best scenario. If you correct this issue before you start tutoring, vision therapy, medication for ADD, ADHD, and if it corrects some of those symptoms without any need for ongoing therapy, then all of those other issues will be resolved in a much quicker and more efficient way. If a person still needs tutoring, the tutoring they might not need as much tutoring, and the tutoring process may go quicker, and they may achieve their goals quicker because they're not fighting the visual stress. The same thing with occupational therapy. I worked in handwriting intervention for many years. I've seen my clients with the spectral filters improve their handwriting without any occupational therapy. That was very humbling to me as an OT who worked with clients once or twice a week for sometimes a year or two to achieve some of the goals that my clients have just by decreasing the stress in their visual system, which actually relaxes their entire body, and it creates a more efficient connection between the eyes and the hands, as well as relaxes the body so that they're not so tight when they write, and they're not going into chicken scratch because they're writing with such tension. And it doesn't work for everybody, but when it works, it's pretty profound to see. Correct identification leads to correct intervention. So if we can eliminate the visual stress in this simple way, and it's not such a simple process of diagnosing it, but it's a simple process of intervention, then things like vision therapy could be less costly and more efficient. And actually, in some cases, use of this system has actually eliminated the need for vision therapy. I can't say that that would happen in every case, but it's worth a try. It's a lot less time consuming, and it can be a lot cheaper than vision therapy. So it's worth doing this first, and then having a good vision developmental optometrist as a support, so that if the client does need more intervention, that you have someone who's working with you. It can also affect the immune system, because when you're under stress, your immune system is impacted, and also emotional health, your well-being, how you manage stress, working and living and just daily performance, and then in all your academic areas, and also sensory processing and motor coordination. I believe that as an occupational therapist, when I eliminate this visual stress, when I'm working on other sensory systems, it's just much easier to get in the door and to get the client focused and ready for therapy sessions when I'm not dealing with so much of the visual stress and the stress that's caused by the visual stress. So it's a vicious cycle, and that's where we're trying to look at environmental stimuli, how that affects the person, and then eliminate some of that so that you don't have this when you're reading and when you're functioning. So we're looking at lighting, we're looking at the intensity, we're looking at the type of lighting, where the lighting's placed. We're looking at glare, and that can actually be also where the person is seated and how much light is coming from above them and on the page. So sometimes wearing even things like a baseball cap or a visor can actually cut down some of the glare if they're in a bright room and the light is glaring onto the page. Looking at colors, looking at high contrast, tracking moving objects, patterns and stripes. So many of my clients do report that patterns on rugs or walls or furniture or clothing bothers them, and it can actually be more than just bothers them. It can be actually causing nausea and anxiety. These are some of the activities that we'll look at in terms of seeing if they improve with the spectral filters or the overlays. So I can actually test before and after while the person's wearing the spectral filters and such things as catching a ball, going up and down stairs, and I don't test for driving, but the clients will report how they feel before and after using the spectral filters. I have a computer where a person can actually look at the computer screen. We have different perceptual tasks, writing tasks, music score. So these are all things that I look at in my testing session with the Erlen method. And this is one of the theories behind the dyslexic symptoms and some of the visual stress symptoms. This is a failure of timing in the visual system. And I think of it like kind of like a watch, where you have all these little teeny gears, and if one little gear is off, it throws off the whole timing system in the watch, and you won't have an accurate timing, an accurate way of telling time. So your brain and your visual system are kind of like the same gears, and all those gears have to work together efficiently in order for the system to work properly. And if one part of the system is under stress, it affects all the other parts of the system. And timing is a very important part of how the brain works efficiently, and if the timing is off, then that can throw off many other things, such as the visual perceptual processes in the brain. And these are some of the affected systems in the brain. We're not going to go over that right now, but this is actually these are brain scans, I believe, from an Amen client before and after the intervention. So the left side is the brain is overworking, and there's a lot of hot spots on the brain in terms of the red. And then you see on the right side how the brain has calmed down immediately after putting on spectral filters. That's a visual description of what we're seeing now in terms of the mind-body connection between the visual system and visual stress, and many other systems which many of you might be familiar with, the endocrine system and the dopamine. A lot of my clients report sleeping problems because of the anxiety that they're experiencing all day long, which also affects many of the biochemical systems in the body. And now a lot of people confront me and say, well, where's the research? This is, why isn't there more research? Well, there's a lot of research if people will look and try to find it. So I've put a lot of those research studies on my website, and if you email me at info@irlenvlcmd.com, I can send you a lot of other research studies. There's a research study that was conducted by the Navy, by optometric colleges, and these are some of them. I don't have all of the copies, but I can send you what I have if you're interested in the research. we'll go over a little bit of the research in the slideshow. But there are over 60 independent studies that are not funded by Erlen diagnosticians or Erlen Institute. There's also many school district studies trying to see whether this intervention would be beneficial. I can send you one from the Massachusetts public school system recommending Erlen, the prison system, and I would love to, that's one of my passions, is to get into the prison school system and see if some of the self-regulation issues that are impacting these people and the literacy issues that could be improved with Erlen method could actually help with the vocational training of some of the people in prisons, decrease their frustration and increase their productivity as citizens with lives that they can be proud of. There's also military research which I can send you. And these are some of the researchers that have provided the body that I have available to you if you would like. This is an Australian Journal of Learning Disabilities, and in Australia Erlen really took off, and many of the public schools in Australia do screen in first and second grade for Erlen and then provide the intervention. This was a Pioneer Valley project, a school system, and it showed significant improvement in accuracy and comprehension in the months that their students were involved in the study. 27% were identified with moderate to severe Erlen syndrome symptoms out of the 172 that were screened. Okay, and these were the results. 83% of the students reading below grade level increased by 9 months to 49 months in accuracy. 67% of the students improved at least 12 months in accuracy, comprehension, and fluency. Study done by the New York City Public School System. And this was a job performance survey showing the improvements with the Erlen method. And these are some of the reading studies. I'm just going to go through these. And there has been a 6-year follow-up study, and we would like to see more of those follow-up studies. I have seen Erlen clients that have been wearing Erlen lenses for over 20 years, some of them, and they have master's degree in education, college education, where they were basically graduating from high school with very little reading. They graduated with accommodations, with special ed services, and attribute to the success of their college education to having found Erlen and being able to read in ways that they had never read before. And here are some other studies. I think what I'd like to do is, if you're interested, just download the PowerPoint. This is the one done in the prison school system, and I think that I will not take up your time going through these studies because you have that information, and as I said, you can email me. I want to show you, the types of intervention that we have. Okay, these are the spectral filters, and they're a much more profound intervention than the $5 overlay. Now the $5 overlay, if every school system in the country, every tutor in this country, and every vision care specialist doing vision therapy was able to screen and provide the overlays, that would be an amazing improvement and probably decrease the use of some of our special ed resources in major ways, so that we're really targeting the people who need to be targeted. The use of spectral filters is a more expensive process, but it's a much more profound intervention. So for those people who have severe symptoms, and they also have the funds or the funding, because there have been funding sources like the Lions Club and different grants that have provided low-income people with the ability to purchase the lenses, it can be a global improvement. And that's where I would like to see the people who have the more severe symptoms be able to access the Erland Diagnostic Services regardless of income. And if they can be helped, it can save money and save time and save lives. Okay, this is more for testing sessions. I do have a training program to teach people. It's a 14-hour training program to teach how to be a Erland screener and provide the overlays. I also have a 3.5-hour training on how to assess for Erland symptoms in the populations that you work with or in yourself. So if you're interested, please email me. And I'd like to move over to, this is another cartoon, the Erland cartoon. Okay, I'd like to move over to the video that I have. And some of you may have seen it if you've gone to my website, but I want to show it. It's by a young man who has Erland syndrome, and he wanted to educate others about how this affected his life, the intervention and how that affected his life, and to educate all of you in a fun way. So I'm going to show this now, and hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I do.
Hey, I'm David Akla, and I have Erland syndrome.
Are
Basically,
you hearing
that just means that I'm sensitive to light. If your eyes are sensitive to light, you can get pretty desperate sometimes. You'll try just about anything for relief. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the symptoms of Erland syndrome, the fix for it, and where you can find more info. Who knows, maybe some of this will look familiar. Maybe you'll be one of many with Erland syndrome. Huh? What is Erland syndrome? Erland syndrome is basically just light sensitivity. It can cause problems with headaches, reading, and depth perception. Let me go into a little more detail. My only problem is headaches. Really bad ones. It's kind of hard to be bright and cheerful all the time when your head feels like it's going to explode every time you go outside on a bright sunny day or you're under bright lights. Erland can also cause a lot of reading problems. The glare of light on a white page can cause the words to blur or move or seem to wash out. Some people have actually been mislabeled as dyslexic when actually all they have is Erland syndrome. Some people might also have a problem with narrow span. They might read really slowly because they can only see a few letters or words at one time. These people might also have a problem with reading sheet music because they can only see the treble clef or the bass clef. They can't see both of them at the same time. Some people might read fine, but they have to reread a sentence or paragraph a bunch of times because they're concentrating so hard on the physical act of reading that they don't actually understand anything of what is read. It doesn't have any meaning. There's also the problem of headaches and sleepiness while reading. Some people might be awesome readers. They read really fast, they understand everything they're reading, but after they read a while they just get a horrible headache, or they just get really tired when they read. A lot of people get really tired under fluorescent lights, and they think it's from something else. They think it's from stress, or they didn't get enough sleep the night before, or the book they're reading is really boring, but actually it's just caused by Erland. A few people might also have a problem with depth perception. They don't see things quite as 3D as everybody else does, like a 3D movie. These people have problems with sports like catching balls or anything like that. Also might have some problems bumping into door frames or just be clumsy in general. Some people also have a problem with driving at night. They're really distracted by the headlights of oncoming cars and things like that, so they can't see well when they're driving. So maybe you think you have one or two or all of these symptoms. Don't freak out. Here's some simple help for you. So there's two basic fixes for Erland syndrome. The first is using an overlay. Overlays are plastic colored sheets that you put over anything you're reading. You can set up an appointment with an Erlen tester to see if you have Erlen, and at the end of your tester will help you find the specific color or combination of colors for overlays that works for you so you can read more easily and comfortably. The problem with overlays is they only help with stuff that's on a page right in front of you. If you need to read something off the board, or if you have problems with headaches, with depth perception, with night driving, overlays won't help with any of that. You'll need some Erlen lenses. These are Erlen lenses here, glasses that are specially tinted to filter the light for me so that I don't have my symptoms, headaches. They would help other people with whatever their symptoms are, reading problems or whatever that might be. To get lenses, you go to an Erlen diagnostician. There's all kinds of possible colors, and the Erlen diagnostician will help you find the one that's right for you. Mine are a combination of a layer of blue and a layer of gray, but it can be anything. After you find your color with the diagnostician, you send a pair of everyday ordinary glasses into the Erlen labs, and they tint them and send them back to you. Now here's the cool part. You can also get Erlen contacts, which work exactly the same way as Erlen lenses, except they're contacts, and you can just get the pupil colored so that you can't even tell they're colored at all. It all depends on your preference, really. Some people hate glasses and would definitely prefer contacts. There's also a lot of common sense accommodations that you can make to help you out. For example, you can use dimmer light. Just turn the light down. Also, a lot of people are bugged by fluorescent light. So you can replace the fluorescent light with incandescent light, halogen lights, or just natural sunlight. Another thing that can help is using colored paper. Colored paper can reduce visual stress and eye strain, and can even improve your handwriting. You can print all kinds of stuff out on colored paper too, like tests or whatever you need. Some people also have a lot of problems with the glare from computer screens. There's a few things you can do to help with that. You can adjust the settings on your monitor, just press a few buttons and turn the brightness down. You can just set an overlay over your computer screen, that helps a lot. Or you can go into the preferences on Windows or something like that and actually change the background color so that programs show up with a colored background. Another obvious help is just wearing a dark colored cap or visor. It shades your eyes from light and helps that way. Problem is, a lot of schools and stuff like that are way overlit, but they don't allow you to wear hats usually. So you can get a note from an Erlen person or a doctor that says you should be able to wear hats, and then good. So there you go. Now you know what Erlen is and all the helps for it. There's all kinds of other places you can go for more information. Quite a few books have been written about Erlen. Erlen's also been on a few TV shows like Good Morning America and 60 Minutes. There's also been all kinds of scholarly articles and news articles written about Erlen syndrome, like this one here. The official Erlen website, erlen.com, also has a bunch of good stuff. It has some research lists and self-tests and a lot more specific info about Erlen. You can also find lists of people in your area who can test you for Erlen and get you the overlays or the Erlen lenses that you need. You can also check out my website at readingandlight.com. It's got a nifty little tutorial on how to change your computer's background color, a super long research list, and a bunch of other good plain info like that. If I didn't have these things, life would pretty much be one big happy headache for me. It could make a big difference for you too. And if you don't think you have Erlen, it might help out your mom or your dad or your best friend, whoever, I don't know. Seriously though, check it out and see if you can learn some more about Erlen syndrome.
So I hope you all enjoyed David's presentation. You can see it on YouTube, and there, if you go to YouTube and you put in Erlen or scotopic sensitivity syndrome, you'll pull up many of the Erlen videos that the Erlen Institute has posted, as well as others, as well as news reports. I want to also thank Helen Erlen, who created this amazing intervention and has passionately brought it all over the world. And I hope everybody gets to read her. She has 2 books. One, her Bible of Reading by Colors, which has been in many prints and is available in different languages. And I hope that, and you can go to her website at www.erlen.com and order those books. And they really give you a very deep background as to what's behind Erlen syndrome or scotopic sensitivity syndrome. And I hope you enjoyed this presentation. There's a lot more to say about it, as you saw, but for now, I guess we're going to have a question and answer section. Okay.
Yes, we are. Thank you very, very, very much. This has been very, very educative. That's the word, I'm sure. Okay. You're pretty good with the camera, though, Shoshana, for your first time. This is you are a natural. So we certainly would love you to come back and expand on several of these topics that you've basically touched on. Lots of information to share. Yes, some of you asked about the slides. Yes, just we probably will make it available on our webpage, where you can purchase them at a really, really low cost. But that obviously helps us to keep hosting these webinars. Now, Shoshana, I'm going to be sending you all the questions in that same chat box. What you can do is that the top right of that box, you can actually expand it. That way you can see all the questions at once. Why don't I just do that right now, so you can start getting ready. Let's see. Okay, let's put it all here. Okay, they're all kind of bundled up, but I'll do a few things while you're looking through the questions, and I'll hand this back over to you in about a minute or so. As many of you know, the Amen Clinics, obviously headed by Dr. Daniel Amen, is sponsoring this event, and Dr. Anibali, who works very closely with Helen, with Shoshana. He was actually the one who recommended Shoshana, and I'm so grateful that he did. He is really impressed with her work, and I am as well. I'm also very, very impressed with Dr. Daniel Amen's work, and he has written some very, very helpful resources. He has the Change Your Brain, Change Your Life package. Let me know. See where I start from. This is a New York Times best-selling book. That's there you have it right there. Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And he's making a special offer for BSW. That's Building Strength webinars, and you can go to our page. Probably later on tonight we'll put the link there, and you can go there and you can access it. So this will probably be available for the next 2 weeks. Dr. Anibali is going to be coming up on the 31st, and then a week after that. So here are the topics. Like, it's a whole package: relaxation, focus, and memory training CD. This is a DVD. I think it's a live, a PBS presentation. Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And I have to tell you, I've read some of his books. I think I read part of that book as well. This is very interesting stuff. A 6 CD series called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And folks, our brain is the most important organ in our body. I mean, the most important organ, and scientists say the most complex structure in the known universe. There is a lot that has to be learned about the brain, and obviously it has a lot to do with even learning difficulties as well. So the more we empower, the more we train, the more we nourish our brains, the better we take care of our brains, the better our brains will function, even when it comes to learning. And okay, here's another one. Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. It's the Preventing Alzheimer's Disease Risk Assessment Questionnaire. And how is your memory? And it basically takes you through a series of exercises. So I really encourage you to take advantage of this. And there's another one, Feel Better Fast, with Dr. Daniel Amen. How to think positive and kill the ants that ruin your happiness. What are ants? Well, get the package and you'll find out about it. It's if you go to our website, the homepage, just below Dr. Anibali's banner, you should see a link that says take advantage of Dr. Amen's package or offer. All right, where's Shoshana? She wants, let me know what to do next. Yes, please repeat the questions and answer them. They're all bundled together, but I try to separate them with using semicolons. So choose the ones you want to answer and then repeat them, say them out so people know what question is being asked. All right, I'm going to hand this back to you, and thank you again for such a wonderful, well-researched presentation.
Hi. Ooh, I got a little frog in my throat. Next time I better bring water. But thank you, Dr. David. That was very nice. And kudos for you in mentoring me through this process. The first question is, I am curious to know of the ease for an ADHD diagnosis with Erlen method. Looking forward to hearing more about these cases. I don't diagnose ADHD through Erlen, but my clients will come in with symptoms of ADHD, so I'm really dealing with symptoms rather than diagnoses. And we look at the symptoms and see how can we track some of those most bothersome symptoms that are causing the most stress, and and see how the Erlen, the implementation of the Erlen method can help alleviate some of those. So I would say that picking out some of the most bothersome would be a person feeling antsy, that they can't sit still, or a person feeling extremely low energy when they read, or when they're functioning in bright lights. Those are the things we can track, and we can see if they're improved. People with ADHD and ADD, they have many, many different symptoms. They're not all the same profile. So we look at a lot of different symptoms and see how to address those symptoms. So if you could look at the 4-page self-test, I think you can look at some of those symptoms that we do address. And I try to get as much collaboration with other professionals who are working with my clients. So it's always wonderful when I have the psychologist or the resource teachers working with me on seeing if those symptoms can be addressed through the Erlen method, and then how I can support them through other interventions. Are 3 and 4-year-olds able to be diagnosed with Erlen, and what is the youngest age to diagnose it? There are many tests that we can use with younger children. It's a sort of specialty area with the screening process, and in some cases we would go right to the lenses in the more severe cases, and possibly with children with autism, which is a highly specialized way of doing the diagnostic services and takes a little bit more training to do and support. That could be a whole other session on just how to assess non-readers. So I won't go into it here, but I do have a whole variety of tools that I use to screen kids who are pre-reading or non-readers. What is your email address? Okay, my email address is info@irlenvlcmd.com, and it stands for Erlen Visual Learning Center of Maryland. Okay? And I do presentations all over the country, so you can look on my website and see where I do the more in-depth presentations on things like brain gym and sensory motor learning and Erlen method, and more in-depth the screener's training and the PASS training. Would a person with cerebral palsy likely to benefit from this treatment? I have no idea. It really depends on the symptoms that I described and that are in the checklist, and then I look at the profile. A person with cerebral palsy who has visual perceptual issues, it may be purely something with a visual motor or a specific area of the brain that is not light sensitive and is not affected by visual stress. I don't think I could help the person in that case, but I would really have to see the symptoms, and I couldn't make a judgment. As I said, I don't work on diagnoses. I do see people with a lot of different diagnoses, but I'm looking at symptoms rather than the actual diagnosis. It's not like a pill, and it's not, it really is a whole process of perceptual testing and then providing the intervention and then having the client really check in with the assessment, and it's a collaborative assessment. Where can we purchase the overlays? You can purchase the overlays from www.erlen.com, which is Helen Erlen's website, and it's Erlen International. And there's a whole store there of different products. Oh, and I forgot to mention Helen's newest book is Erlen Revolution. Excellent, excellent book, and I highly recommend it. So you can purchase that there as well. And what you can purchase a package of overlays with an instruction booklet, but it's not a screening. Screening to be a screener, and you must have a bachelor's degree or higher. To be a screener takes a 14-hour training, and then like actually using it and learning about how to look for Erlen syndrome symptoms and how to address those symptoms. So it's not as simple as just putting an overlay on a page, but it can help, and you can do that. And then if it does help, then I would recommend seeing a trained professional to go further and get a more fine-tuned diagnostic criteria and intervention. My daughter with severe dyspraxia is a freshman at a high school in Spring, Texas, Houston suburb. Oh, you're very lucky. And this method was never mentioned. Well, I would look up Pat Johnson, who is a neuropsychologist in Houston, and she's the main Erlen diagnostician for the entire United States, and she is the one that has helped implement it in many of the Texas public schools. So I would basically, if you email me, I can give you her contact information, but I'm pretty sure you could probably do a Google search for her. And she has many tutoring clinics and assessment clinics all over the Houston area, and then I think all over Texas. Okay. Okay, I bought some overlays for her and would like to screen her at home. Is that possible? Without training, I wouldn't say that it was a screening, but yes, you can see if it helps and see which color helps. And there's a whole process of how to layer the colors as well, and also with lighting, which takes training. But yes, you could try it. Does eye color seem to be a determining factor? Not that I know of. My blue-eyed daughter is light sensitive and has migraines. Well, if she's light sensitive and has migraines, regardless of her blue eyes, I would say it's worth looking into. Any way to incorporate overlays into ebook readers? Sounds like a great idea. You could purchase the overlays and see if you could actually cut the overlay to fit your ebook and see if that helps. There's a shiny side and a dull side, so you also have to see which one is visually better for you, as well as the color. Can it sometimes be identified as astigmatism, the blurred vision? That's me. Well, if you're light sensitive and you have blurred vision and your doctor has corrected you as much as could possibly correct you, and you're still having problems, it's definitely worth a try, definitely worth looking into. Is it possible that someone's optic nerves have been affected by Lyme disease can be helped with Erlen filters? Yes, I have Lyme disease, and my eyes became light sensitive, and I wear Erlen spectral filters, and I never had a problem with light sensitivity before I had Lyme disease. So yes, it can definitely help. Would like to mention, in conjunction with my previous question about self-screening, I have a master's in education and learning disabilities and would like the ability to screen. Then please find an Erlen screeners training and get trained. We would love to have you in our network. We would love to have any of you who have been here tonight tell your friends, tell the teachers, tell occupational therapists. There are training programs all over the country, and you can go to erlen.com and find one in your area. You can come to mine. You can bring me as a speaker, and I'd be very happy to train groups of people to be screeners. And I also have the 3.5-hour training, which teaches people how to be pre-screeners. We would love it. So thank you for your questions. And I believe, oh, there's another question. Oh, how often do students diagnosed with Asperger's have this condition? I've seen quite a few. I know Helen Erlen sees a lot of people with Asperger's, and I think that you have to look at, again, the symptoms and the 4-page self-test. As I said, it's my tool to see whether I can really help somebody. So if anybody wants to submit that to me, and I can go through it and look at the symptoms and give you an idea, and then you can find a screener in your area, I'd be very happy to do that. Just email it to me. If someone needs corrective lenses, how do the Erlen lenses work with prescription glasses? Good question. Are you a diagnostician in addition to be a screener? Yes, I began as a screener and then became a diagnostician. There are thousands of screeners. There's only a few hundred diagnosticians. It's a much more in-depth learning process, and I'm still learning 2 years later. I am learning all the time from every single client. In terms of prescription lenses, we can tint what's called CR39 tintable plastic lenses. They are not high impact glasses. They are not polycarbonate. They are CR39. And if you have prescription lenses that are bifocals or high index lenses, then you would have them made up by your optician, and then they would be sent to the Erlen labs and they would be tinted. They have to have no anti-scratch coatings, no other coatings, and we will put the anti-scratch coating on after they are tinted. If you have low index lenses or no prescription, then Erlen Labs will make up the lenses. They will cut the lens if you want to fit a frame that we send in. Consumers cannot go through the Erlen Labs. You have to go through a diagnostician. So I actually have people coming to me from many different states, and because we're working in a regional area, so you may have to travel a bit, but the nice thing is it's not therapy, so you only have to come once, maybe twice, but that's it. And if you don't have any problems, then year to year you can just get retinted. The same lenses can be retinted if they're not scratched. It becomes a very cost-effective process after the first year. And you really never have to have another diagnostic test unless you have a major issue in your life that is causing major visual problems. So you get what's called a retint every year or two, and then you can upgrade the tint, you can fine-tune the tint, you can make sure that your tint hasn't faded, because some colors do fade after time. So hope that answers your question. And there's a lot more to say, and you're welcome to email me, and as well, maybe I would be coming back sometime and doing a next level training. So I guess that's okay. Please. Oh, okay. Yes, very important. The overlay color is not usually the same color as the spectral filters. The overlay is just addressing the reflected light off of a written page. That's a different kind of light then the kind of light that's coming into your visual system, the spectral filters will filter all light coming into your visual system, okay, not just reflected light. So it's very rare that I ever have a client that has the same color overlay and the same color spectral filters. The spectral filters can be, there's thousands of combinations, there's many, many layers. It takes 2 to 3 hours or more. With traumatic brain injured clients, sometimes it could take 6 hours. It depends on the client. The average client is about 2.5 hours for the spectral filters. The overlay color can take anywhere from a half an hour to an hour and a half. And it's a pretty simplistic process in terms of the ability to address all the symptoms, but it can be profound. It's just that the spectral filters are a lot more fine-tuned in terms of working with the neurobiological system and the visual system in the brain. And you don't want to have glasses colored the same way as the overlay, because you may actually cause visual distortions in your brain by doing that. You need to be assessed by a trained diagnostician for the spectral filters. It is not the same colors that your eye doctor has. And it's a patented process, and I've tried other systems. I've used Chromogen and I've used other systems, and they're just not as fine-tuned. They do help, but they're just not as fine-tuned. And when I got to Erlen spectral filters and the training process, it was at such a high level of fine-tuning what I was doing that I can't go back. You know, once you know something, you don't go back. And it's like when I didn't know it, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I'm hoping that you all who get excited about this will come and do the training if you're qualified and have that bachelor's degree. So I guess that's it. I don't see any more questions, but I want to thank everybody for hanging in there and staying with the process and my novice method of instruction on the internet, and I'm hoping that I can do this again and get better and better. So thank you, David.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You've already started very, very well. So thank you again so much. Lots of good information, and Elsie says thank you for a wonderful presentation. So certainly we would love to have you back if you would agree to come back and do a few more presentations for us, as many more as you can bear. We have, our schedule is always welcome for information like this, or welcoming to information like this. I need to get my English right. This is one of the best webinars I have ever seen. Thank you both. Wow. Well, we must have you back then. Okay, I think this wraps it up for tonight. The handouts, we will send everyone an email. So if you want to purchase the handouts, I guess you can click on the link that we sent to you. We might be making this presentation available again for replay because this is such good information. Let me think about that some more. We usually don't. Only our members have that privilege of watching replays, but I tell you what, sometimes we make exceptions. All right, that was a great video, by the way. David Acola, excellent. He's another natural. Did a great job. Okay, what else do we have to say? Okay, if you want to take advantage of Dr. Amen's special offer, it's right there on the homepage below the banner. And if you have any questions for Shoshana, you can either send her an email. She gave you her email address. Or you can also go back to our homepage, click on that same banner that you used to register, and right below on that same page that you get to when you click on the banner, there are spots where you can actually post your comments and questions, and we keep all that. Whenever there are questions, we actually send them to the presenter, in this case Shoshana, who will send those questions to her so she can answer those questions on that same page where you posted them, which really makes for a good instruction, because someone else going back to that site can see the questions and can see how Shoshana replied or dealt with those questions, and they can grow from there. And that's really what happened with Dr. Anibali. He had such a list of questions and comments, and he replied to most of them, and finally he was like, this is really good. So he asked me if he could if I could copy and paste all those questions so he could use it for his own instruction. And I think it helps people. This feedback like that helps them the presenters improve and to work on their next presentations, or whenever it's help them deal with other clients and patients when they come along. So with that, we're just going to say have a great night, and thank you again, Shoshana, for doing this.